Alright guys, what's going on? So in today's video, I wanted to go over some anecdotal experiences, if you will, on sleep paralysis experiences I've personally had. I've made like little short videos here and there describing like a few of the experiences that I've had, but I kind of wanted to make a full encompassing video on the multiple. I've had like maybe 5 experiences or so that I can actually remember. I've had some weird spiritual encounters in the sleep/dream state. Oftentimes I found myself in dreams, battling the good spiritual fight. The world will find natural ways to describe supernatural experiences. You see this even when people are talking about God, oh, if God's real, show him to me right now. Have him show his hand. Let's see, are you real, God? And it's like, it doesn't work like that. We're talking about the supernatural spiritual realm. It's not just gonna appear in the physical as such. And I know people have mental health disorders and stuff like that, and that's definitely legitimate. What the world does, it gets way too carried away when it comes to things in the spiritual realm, be it the Holy Spirit or any demonic occurrences, where they will spin it. And if you saw a demon or something, or you saw some kind of spirit while you had a sleep paralysis episode, which we're gonna get into shortly, then you have this, you have some kind of mental health problem now, because you're a bit off your rocker if that happens. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is that the world recognizes that the spiritual realm is real, which would lead a lot of people to God. That's what I think personally. I'm not saying that that's just a fact, but I think it makes sense in the godless culture and the godless society we live in. It's easier for them to just maybe throw a bottle of pills at you and say, hey, I think you're just absolutely crazy and you've lost your mind, and that's why you think you've been having these experiences. And when you've actually had these experiences firsthand and you hear this kind of stuff, it's almost frustrating in a way, because most people are going to follow that narrative and just be led astray by it, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Also, I find it interesting how every episode of sleep paralysis that I had, it was fear-based. It was some kind of fear was being placed on me, whether it was something that I was seeing or something that I thought I was hearing. People will say, oh, your mind just plays games with you when you're in that state of sleep paralysis. Just a natural thing for your body to wake up and, oh, you got sleep paralysis, and then your mind starts playing games. Nothing spiritually is occurring. And I just think it's a boatload of buckus is what I think it is. So let's get into the first experience. So this is the first experience off the top of my head that I can remember of sleep paralysis. Funny enough, at the time, so I was in 5th grade. I was like 10 years old, and when this happened, I didn't even care. Like, I wasn't even fearful in the moment, from what I can remember. I didn't even tell my parents about it. I just thought it was some weird dream occurrence, and I went on about my day. So, I wake up, can't move, sleep paralysis as usual, and I look over to the side of my room with my eyes only, of course, because I can't move. And on my dresser, I see this is gonna get a little graphic, just a little bit, so bear with me. A deceased baby with blood on his face, clearly dead. His eyes were open. I have the image is like ingrained in my mind, and I remember I looked at it and I just instantly in my brain triggered, okay, this is not real. I know that that's not an actual dead baby on my dresser here, so I'm just gonna go back to bed. And because you'd think a kid would just like start screaming and be freaking out, I just didn't even, like, it was kind of creepy, right? But I just didn't really care. But kind of the thing that's really creepy about this, though, is that my mom, when I grew up, she was a babysitter. So she babysat, like, a couple pairs of twins through my time growing up. And the baby that I saw on my bed, sorry about the wind, by the way, but the baby that I saw on my bed on the dresser happened to be one of the twins that my mom was babysitting at the time. And yeah, he was dead. He had blood on his face. He was clearly deceased. He had, like, I'm not gonna get too far into it, but he was clearly not alive, okay? And the fact that it was, looking back on it, the fact that it was a child that my mom was babysitting at the time, it's definitely kind of creepy. Being that some kind of demonic spirit that placed that into me and, made me see that visual is definitely creepy. And in this house, my mom told me stories that things happened with my sister in that house. And at this time, I'm ignorant, right? I'm a young kid, I'm blind to a lot of it, but there were times where I would walk into my room and I'd see this, like, it was like a few it looked like rain droplets, right? But it was like green goo. It was like a few droplets of green water, I guess, just that would fall in front of me. It would just go really quick right in front of my face, and I would see it a lot. It was like almost like a neon green color, and I would see it a lot, and I'd just be like, oh, am I seeing stuff? What is this? And again, I didn't really care much, but it was just weird. So when it comes to like the whole dream state, the word nightmare, funnily enough, the word mare and nightmare actually means mythological demon or goblin who torments others with frightening dreams. And I think that just goes to show it's just like a funny way that this world has of like taking these very real spirit. And again, I think that just goes to show this world has a very funny way of taking very real spiritual occurrences and kind of just making you numb to it and think they don't exist. Like if you look in movies and entertainment, like you see all these spooky creatures and demonic figures and all of this occultist religion garbage and stuff, and it programs our brains to just think, oh, that's just in the movies, all this religious spiritual mumbo jumbo. So when you hear somebody talk about it as truth, and that it actually is a thing, the spiritual realm, you know, there is actually spiritual warfare going on, people, including me at one point, they're just programmed to be like, oh, that's just stuff in the movies, this guy must be crazy. What do you mean there's actually a spirit? No, that's just like weird stuff in the movies. People throw around the word nightmare, but in reality, like that's what a mare is a demonic figure that comes to torment you in your dreams. So with a lot of this stuff, we have to break into with the origins of this stuff, right? Because we can't believe what the world and our culture and society now says about these things, because our culture and society has perverted every element of the Bible, perverted religion as we know it. It's a godless society in America now. We can't trust what our current day says about these things, about anything spiritual, anything having to do with religion. We need to look back at things like the Bible. We need to do our own research, not watch a 10-second TikTok and consider that research and then come to your own conclusion through a 10-second video. You actually need to go back in time in history and study the origins, see where these things and these ideas came from, and then decide for yourself, is this something that makes sense or not? Moving on to my next set of experiences here. There was a lot of on and off experiences that I'm not gonna fully remember, but there was a period in my life when I was like, 10th, 11th grade, 16, 17 years old in high school. Still don't know what this is. There would be times where I would start falling asleep, right? And right in between that awake state and the sleep state, like right in that middle ground in there, I'd start hearing like this loud sound start to rise and get louder and louder. It sounded almost like loud, like static that started quiet and slowly but quickly got louder and louder and louder and louder to the point where I would just wake myself up, because I'm laying there half awake, half asleep, and I'm hearing this sound build up. And in my head, I'm kind of thinking like, what is this? Like, what is going on here? And then it gets so loud to where I just wake up and I'm like, dude, what the heck? And then a lot of times, sometimes it would happen once a night, sometimes it would happen like a couple of times until I finally can just fall completely asleep. But I did a quick Google search on that. Again, at the time, I'm like ignorant. I don't really care too much about it. The closest thing I found was explosive head syndrome, and I'm not diagnosing myself. I don't know. I've not heard of anyone else having that sort of thing happen. If there's somebody else out there that has had something similar to that happen, then please let me know. I'm assuming it's just another way of the devil trying to torment me. In 2021, when I was actually living in North Carolina, I was on break from work, and I would come home and I would eat, and I would take like a half-hour nap before I headed back to work. I'm sleeping there, I wake up, sleep paralysis is normal, can't move, except this time I wake up and I see a dark figure in the corner of my eye. So I'm laying on my right side. I see the dark figure like right in the corner of my eye. He's like just out of my range of vision to where like I can't place my eye directly on him, but I can see him in my peripheral. And as soon as I kind of recognize that he's there, he like stands there and then he just like scurries around the corner. He like turns around, tucks tail, and scurries around the corner. And I just woke up and I was like, dude, again, at the time, like I didn't really, like I was like, okay, this is something creepy. And man, boy, was I ignorant, because I'm hearing myself say this now and I'm like, dude, that is something that I should have completely just like got on top of, right? But at that time in my life, that was like 2021. That was the point in my life where I definitely invited some spirits in and did some questionable things where otherwise it's kind of to be expected, something like that happening. So that's clearly a situation of like, how do you make something like that up, man? Hallucination, very doubtful, especially when you consider the next stories that I'm about to tell you, which very recent actually. This was maybe like 6 months ago, before I really gave myself the crisis. Is at a time when I was starting to get to that, poor spirit level to where I could really invite him into my life. At that apartment that I was living in, there was a lot of dark things in there. It was a certain eeriness to the room, to the apartment that I always felt. And even my mom, she's been a Christian for multiple decades over. I went to her one day and I said, is it just me, or is there something that's kind of like, something feels weird about this place? And she was like, yeah, I've thought that many times coming in here. So anyway, there would be so many nights, man, where I would fall asleep, and I would, some nights it would be regular sleep paralysis as normal. Again, at some point it just starts getting annoying, the sleep paralysis stuff. If it's just like, you know, your routine, fall half asleep, wake up, you can't move, and you have to try as hard as you can to move a limb so you can wake yourself up and like reset yourself and fall back asleep. There'd be a lot of times like that. There'd be times where it would happen multiple times in a row, which really that's like complete tormenting state. That's where the devil is clearly has something on you that's trying to just annoy you and torment you. A few times where, you know, I would wake up, I'd have sleep paralysis, I can't move, and here I hear feet shuffling on the carpet right behind me. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, Jesus, like, help me, Jesus, right now. Jesus, like, please save me. Like, I'm like trying to talk to Jesus in my head. And I don't even think I tried saying anything. I know I hear people talking about how they try to say Jesus' name and they can't. Also, I need to point out, like, a lot of these times, it's like hard to breathe. I didn't feel like somebody was like, you know, had their hands on my neck or anything like that, but I was like, my breath was really shallow, and I'd be sitting there like trying to move, and I'd be like, dude, I can barely breathe right now. Like, what the heck? And so I'd hear feet shuffling on the carpet. There was one time I heard the doorknob jiggling around, and it lasts for like 5-10 seconds before you wake yourself up and you can turn around, right? But when you're laying down and you can't move, but you're awake and you're hearing footsteps coming on the carpet right under you, a little bit of a scary situation. I just told this story recently. There's times where I'd hear like a chair right outside on the patio. Oh, sorry about the siren, man. Man, it's the society we live in. I can't even stand out here and try to rebuke any demons. I can't speak wrongly about the devil's spiritual realm without society coming in with its loud, distracting, confusing noises and trying to shift my perspective. I'm just kidding. Fire truck. There would be times though at that house as well where I'd be sitting there, I wouldn't even be trying to sleep, and I'd hear like chairs scraping on the patio outside, and I'd be like, what the heck? Now I've accepted God into my life. I've been reading the word, I've been praying. If something like this happens now, I'm clearly gonna be like, okay, this is some kind of spiritual warfare. I'm gonna actually go out and check what that noise just was. I'm gonna start, you know, calling on Jesus. Spiritual warfare, it definitely does not stop at night. That's one thing that I know. And luckily, since I've accepted God into my life, I haven't had too many issues in the dream realm. The dream state is always a place where the devil's been trying to attack me, man. I've had wet dreams, I've had sexual dreams. If these things happen, man, I would recommend you don't listen to what this culture nowadays is telling you. Oh, it's just some sleep disorder you have, you know, you should take some melatonin, you'll be all right. I would wager it's far from that, because all these things happened in my life very consistently until I actually started spending time with God and praying and rebuking these things. And since then, I haven't had issues at all. In fact, my entire being feels completely different since accepting God into my life. I don't feel heavy, like I'm carrying a weight on my shoulder anymore. This is kind of how the devil will come and wear you down slowly. These very minute things, like you just feel a little bit more fatigued a lot of the time, right? You go to a doctor, I feel fatigued. Oh, you just got to eat differently, right? So the world is very easy for the world to just kind of throw these things at you and say, well, this can't be a spiritual thing. Now I get it. It's sort of a nuanced thing where maybe you are eating like garbage and you just need to clean your diet up, and then you'll feel a little bit better. But it's a very specific weighed down feeling when it's not something as simple as a diet, and it's actually you have some kind of spirits around you, or some kind of eeriness that's in the rooms that you're in your house or whatever. Like you can kind of feel these things as they're happening. A lot of times it's multiple things coming together to bring you to the conclusion that, okay, there's some kind of evil in here, right? Like an eerie feeling in the room. You're having weird dreams and stuff repeatedly, tormenting thoughts. On top of you find yourself like you're just weighed down. You kind of just have to be more in touch with your spirit in order to really open your eyes to these things. Again, I've been blind to these things for years myself, so I definitely know what it's like to be in that sort of arrogant state of like, what are you talking about, man? Like, this is just like, it's just how I feel. What do you mean? God opened my eyes up to this realm and to this stuff that happens that is very real. If you're struggling with sleep paralysis, man, get closer to God, strengthen your spirit, because that's how these things occur. Is your spirit is weakened and the devil is allowed to come in, and he can not just necessarily come into you and your soul. He can do that, but he'll dwell around you. He'll do these little things to torment you, right? He'll make noises outside, and he'll get you to blame it on the person rather than him, right? The devil's very deceitful. He's the master of deceit. So don't let his games work on you, man. Get close to God, strengthen your own spirit. In strengthening your own spirit, you'll find you'll want to sin less. You'll just want to get away from the devil more. You won't be so akin to just quickly sin, right? Because when you're in the state of like, you don't have God in your life, it's so easy to sin. It's just like all you know, right? You want to sin these things that make you feel good and comfortable and happy, pleasurable things that are sinful. It's so easy to do. But when you find yourself getting close to God, like I said, it strengthens your spirit. It changes the way you think, man. It really does. I know this, to somebody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, to somebody who's not accepted God into their life, it sounds like, just spiritual mumbo jumbo. What do you mean, man? You don't make much sense. I promise you, try it. Try praying. Try reading the Bible. Try asking God to come into your life. Stay on it for a while. Don't do it once and rule it out. Have an open mind, and he can come into your life, and he can definitely strengthen your spirit, and he can make it so much easier for you to get off addictions and stay away from corn and stop fornicating and being sexually immoral, and it'll make you feel cleaner, man. It'll come into your spirit. He'll cleanse it out for you. So I'm gonna leave it there, man. Thank you so much for watching this, and feel free to drop a like if you really want to. Only if you really like the video, though, and we'll see you in the next one.